who have been exploiting our people instead of actually telling them certain basic truths relative to the operations of de facto persons and entities operating or impersonating as government and causing injury on humanity at large, and in particular causing injury against continued injury against the true Aboriginal and indigenous natural peoples of the land, not just limited to the Western Hemisphere, but in particular with their war machine being rooted geographically mainly in the Maghreb or the Western Hemisphere, or Morocco, the most extreme west, under occupational powers. I find it necessary to counter some of the infiltration and countermeasures made by members of the British Accredited Registry, which you will know as the American Bar Association, as well as persons and people who have worked with them or are associated with them who have been exploiting our people instead of trying to solve the problems, instead of recognizing the fundamental rule that a servant is indeed worthy of his hire. However, instead of trying to solve the problems of exploitation with our people, they have been actually making a financial revenue stream for themselves at the cost and the expense of our people, due to the fact that they're not really trying to solve anything. They're really just simply continuing or finding another angle of exploiting our people who are being exploited by the occupational, Occidental, hybrid Europeans who are the owners of and the beneficiaries of the defunct and de facto United States Corporation Company, which again went bankrupt, operating on the land, exercising de facto civil jurisdiction on the land of North America under the guise of government. And they have been successful in deceiving the people into thinking that they are legitimate when they are de facto. And also relative to the fact that many people among our own who know that these people and the entity and the subdivisional states of municipalities, etc., constructed under them are in fact de facto. And rather than tell the people the truth, they've been playing these emotional process games with the people so that they can get into their pockets, and are indeed not trying to solve anything. They're just simply continuing the exploitation revenue stream created by the injuries caused by the occupational forces under de facto government, under the guise of helping our people in the so-called conscious community, which is misused statement, and also infiltrating themselves into the Moorish Divine and National Movement under the guise of supporting the principles laid before us by our illustrious Prophet Noble Ali, and the positive aspects of principled constitutional enforcement as presented by the Holy and Divine Prophet to the Moors of the Northwest, who have been subjugated under hybrid European colonial operations, particularly the bulls of the Catholic Church, being Dum Diversas, Romanus Pontifex, Unum Sanctum, etc., Sister QV Act of 1666, etc., which would include all operations of the ens legis straw man concepts of human trafficking, etc., of exploitation of children, of sacrificial hierarchy, murdering of children under the guise of women's rights, also called abortion, also related to what is known as the Roe versus Wade operations under this disguise of helping women when really it's part of the genocide operations. and also part of the food chain fed back to the people, etc., with the carcasses after they have been discarded and organs, etc., and blood has been removed from them, and things of that nature. And that's a fact. It's an uncomfortable fact, but it is the reality. And I feel that many people, because these subject matters are sensitive, uncomfortable realities of the operations here at Midgard, they don't want to get into that. They'd rather dance our people through processes and sell them instruments in the name of regaining or taking semblance of holder in due course relative to their lost estate under the Sister QV Act, etc., and deluding to becoming the executor of their lost estate that has been essentially placed out of their venue, out of their control, in the hands of persons who have been claiming to be government who are not. And with the knowledge that the members of the Circle Church and Chancery, located in England, etc., who you know as the Sadducees and Pharisees, better known as attorneys, esquires, and lawyers, etc., with their allegiance to the Pope of Rome under the Spanish Inquisition against the Moors, etc., have been exploiting our people for the last few hundred years. And in fact, the network of their operations actually goes back more than 1,000 years. That's a fact. And much of the injuries that they have caused against humanity, they have done in other people's names. This is one of the tricks of masking, or what you call projection, that they have used strategically for years, for hundreds of years. I, as an example, present to you a paradox that you may have heard of in some of the John D. Rockefeller and Frederick T. Gates operations of humans being trained under animal husbandry, known as the General Education Board, with helpers from among our own who have received their royalties from being so-called teachers of the Board of Education, who have been also parasitic promoters of the paradigms of human molding under the philosophies of John D. Rockefeller and Frederick T. Gates, to make our people docile, thinking that they were actually being made erudite in human endeavors when they're actually being trained under chattel operations of animal husbandry. And so usually the hybrid occupational owners of the United States Corporation Company and its subdivisional franchisees, states of corporate entities, and their municipalities, which are corporate entities, they're not legitimate government. This must be comprehended, overstood, understood, around about known, etc., and you must be cognizant of. And they are using or operating in the name of sovereign powers that are not actually vested in them. And so one of the things that I wanted to share with you all tonight is some of the principles of established law coming from the fundamental institutes of American law. And what I want you to take note of is this, and I want you all to take notes. Please do take notes. Now, while this is in its nature an extensive study, I'm going to share with you some fundamental principles by which you can vet people who are involved in your life in the name of law, in the name of helping, quote unquote, the community, etc., and in the name of acknowledging your nationality, etc., so that you can vet both them, who many of them are actually what you would call controlled operatives, who have what you might call helpers in the background that you don't see, who are set among you to exploit or to continue the exploitation of our people. And most of them are very intelligent, well-spoken, well, as you might call, educated. However, one of the reasons I'm sharing this with you, because I've experienced over the years, and I know some of you who are becoming conscious have been exploited by these people, whereas instead of telling you the truth of the fundamentals, so that we all can start coming together using our divine mind and common sense, which harmonizes with what is known as the common law, they would prefer to dance you through processes that are actually supportive of the federal rules of civil procedures, things like this, which was set up by members of the Curia and Bar for the purpose, for the absolute purpose of retarding and denying due process, denying justice, but giving the feigned or the false appearance of maintaining or producing or executing or ruling in cases of controversy, i.e., for the sake of justice or balance, all of which they are not, have not been, don't intend to, etc. And so I'm sharing with you some fundamental principles, and we can discuss some of them. And this is, I want to show some of this, and I've been sharing this with brothers and sisters who have been part of or involved with the Moors Order of the Round Table since 1982, to try to help them come into the proper state of mind in relationship to them making what you would call rebuttal writs and rights of claims relative to their unalienable rights and their birthrights, which are relative, which have been constantly abridged, abused, exploited, violated, trespassed against by people who have claimed to be, quote unquote, government officials, and others among our own who have been educated by them, who have associations with members of the Bar Association and members of the Board of Education, who are really in it to line them their pockets and aren't really honorably having any real intentions of liberating our people. So I'm going to share with you some fundamental principles so that you can make discernments of your own and not be followers of myself or anyone else, but that you yourself know some of the fundamental principles so that you can make discernment and judgments for yourself and on your own sake. So I'm going to share with you some entries from the Superliminal, and then we're going to go into Institutes of American Law. And as you know, in some of our past conversations here at the House of Reawakening Minds, we dealt with the issue of capitis diminutio maxima, that controversy. And this is actually a continuation in that particular section of the Superliminal. And I felt it apropos to deal with it tonight because the timing is right on, particularly with the controversies that you see taking place across the land right now with appearances of divisions, etc., etc. Now, what you have is agendas being exposed. And so what I want to do is share with you, some of you who are already aware, and many of you who are less aware, and particularly those who are less aware, so that you can start doing some things from in relationship to issues of your right of estate, your right of claim, the right of your labor, your right not to be taxed by a foreign fraudulent platform entity operations of criminals who have been pretending to be government, who are actually warring against you, and to start protecting yourselves from people among ourselves who are secretly associated with them while pretending to be helping you, who are really there to continue the exploitation, even though they're getting a little less what you would call emoluments from the people than the hybrid Europeans. They are what you might say that those others are in the background, and most of them are who will put them among you under the guise of helping, so that you can discern who is who, what, and keep this in mind: will and intent. I repeat, will and intent. And so in relationship to fundamental elements of Al-Moroccan or American law, we're dealing with some essentials of law and sovereignty. And so I want to share with you just some of these things so that your concepts will be aligned with what we're sharing with you. And also, we want to show you, and the reason I'm showing you this also is because these people who are claiming to be government and these people who claim to be so-called community educators and leaders are well aware of this information, but they will definitely, in general, not share this type with you because they don't want you liberated from the quote-unquote system, nor from them. So they all, because keep in mind, birthrights are not for sale. Unalienable rights are not for sale. Birthrights are distinguished from privileges. Unalienable rights are distinguished from privileges. Birthrights are distinguished from licenses. Unalienable rights are distinguished from licenses and privileges. Keep that in mind while I'm sharing this information with you, which means no lien can be put upon them. They are not to be applied for. They are to be reclaimed. And when you see people who claim to have authority or some position of authority become offended when they hear the word birthright, words birthright, sovereignty, etc., you already know that they are enemies of humanity. And so I'm going to share some things with you preliminarily, and then we'll get into some of the principles of laws and government. Now, a reminder to us all is to be in the consciousness of the existence of the higher self and of the lower self. And many of you who have had the honor and the benefit of becoming involved or associated with the Moorish Divine and National Movement as set forth by Prophet Noble Drew Ali and others working with him during the year 1913 officially, although the operations was operative a few years before then. Those of you who have a foundation in some of the instructions presented to the Moors of Northwest by the Prophet are aware of the higher self and lower self. And this is one of the first things he reminded the Moors of the Northwest to remember and to know of your higher self and lower self. So keep this in mind as we are going through this treatise, and hopefully it will benefit all of us. So as a reminder for all of us is to be in the consciousness of the existence of the higher self and of the lower self. And the focus of the higher self, engages thoughts and actions related to that which is of the positive, that which is du jour, and with the fair, the just, the righteous, the balanced, the truth, and the love, etc. The lower self refers to the thoughts and to the actions which are de facto, that which deludes to selfishness, to usury, to parasitic narcissism, to unfair exploitation, and with injustice, with murder, with theft, with frauds, and with everything negative, and with thoughts that harm, etc. And we are sharing with you now some of the fundamental elements about land jurisdiction, air jurisdiction, and water jurisdiction relative to things and to aspects one needs to know about law and about sovereignty. And so law is essentially land, air, and water jurisdiction issues constructed on what you would call constitutional reasoning relative to the makeup of man, harmonic with the laws of nature and nature's God principle, so that it actually offends none, but recognizes and preserves the unalienable rights or birthrights of man as a species at Midgard Earth. Now, I want to present to you this. Some of these things we're going to be talking about is to present to you certain fundamental principles so that you can know for yourself that if you have not been experiencing what you would have been calling government from this perspective, you have been experiencing criminality. If you have not been experiencing these fundamental principles presented to you, which are in their essence de jure, you have been experiencing the opposite, which is de facto. So therefore, this would help you have a measure of truth from falsehood to distinguish the two. Fake government or de facto government distinguished from de jure, which would be the real. And I find it necessary because these people and their minions among us have been continuing their exploitation of our people. And due to the fact that the platforms that they have constructed for these last thousands of years or so are being dismantled with the energy of the Aquarian lights and the consciousness of the people coming into the higher planes of life, thus their thoughts are arising or ascending, and the pineal gland is becoming more active. This is the age of what you will call enlightenment or consciousness. That path of thinking is what we're on in general. Some are rising or ascending, some and some less so. And so we're sharing this information so that you can be more willing and knowingly willing to let go of some false concepts that may have been inculcated within your thought processes and in the paradigm of your existence, that you yourself must shed them. And it is not being shared with you to make you a follower of anyone, but to help liberate you in relationship to the cognizance of your relationship to government and its relationship to you. And so we will continue. So in this treatise, we review the subject matters involving American law and the laws of government. And in any controversy or law issues concerning diverse arguments or jurisdictions, etc., one must be made aware of the parties in the controversy. Keep that in mind. Always being aware of parties in the controversy. There's no such thing as a controversy existing that needs adjudication or needs to be brought before a court or needs to be brought before the public view relative to a process of what you call the thought processes of the people, or of a competent or incompetent political venue platform known as a court, etc. So in this controversy, issues concerning diverse arguments or jurisdiction, one must be made aware of the parties in the controversy, the matters of the claims, the competency of the jurisdiction presented, the veracity or lack thereof concerning venue, and the conditional capacities of those who decide or rule in the resolutions of the case or issues at hand, etc. And trusting that the limited presentments shared tonight at least, will assist one in one's capacity to discern in vetting those who claim authority in matters of persons, in matters of subjects, in matters of territorial jurisdictions, etc. And so let us be clear on the issues of diverse controversy concerning America, Americans, and law and sovereignty. First, who are the Americans? Americans are the aboriginal and indigenous natural peoples of the lands located geographically at the western degrees of the aggregate organic lands on Midgard Earth. The Americans are dark olive, copper, and melanin complexion natural peoples distinguished from Xanthus or Occidental peoples. The true anthropological histories demonstrate that the Americans are descendants of the ancient Canaanite, Moabite, Asiatic, African peoples. And they are the direct descendants of the ancient peoples generally referred to as Phoenicians, Moors, Almorocans, Mu, and related Asiatic African peoples. In the matter of sovereignty, we are referring to the natural divine state of man and woman as existing in physical dimension, descended from the natural womb of mother, womb man, being a gateway from the divine source, commonly and loosely referred to as God, the creator, etc. In the matters of civilization and organized government, sovereignty is vested in the people and is conditionally extended by reasonable and consented agreement to a monarch or representative governing body of men and or women whose political existence is predicated on the service of preserving, of securing, of upholding, and of protecting the pre-existing natural and unalienable rights of the governed. They have no other purpose of political construct. And thus the rightful or de jure government of the said people may be referred to as sovereign. A vital point of our present conversation is to to know that many people or persons who have claimed to be, quote unquote, the sovereign power or authority over you, over your rights, or over your property or labor, etc., are usually lying or criminal de facto in intent and in actions, as distinguished from those beings or entities possessing true or de jure delegated authorities. Discernment in the law and sovereignty matters is a focal point. And so shielding or shedding parasitic peoples from your energy field is indeed a part of the intent of this treatise. Be cognate and be aware. Nativity and nationality cognate thinking is the order of the day. Now let us share with you some liberating and knowledgeable principles about American law and the laws of government. And so now we're going to go into some of these fundamentals that I will share with you, that I've been sharing with people for about 40 years, etc. And this particular, I want to present to you to know that people who claim to be government, who claim to have authority over you, who have been taxing you wrongfully, and who have been executing powers over your property, over your bodies, over your labors, etc. If what you have been experiencing is contrary to what I'm about to read to you, know that you've been dealing with criminals and frauds. That's the beginning of many of you to be on your path of social, political, and economic liberation, sometimes referred to as self-determination. Isn't that term being used lightly and wrongly by many who don't teach these things? And you'll also recognize why they don't teach civics. Now, I'm going to give you some categories that are being presented here. However, we will not go over all of them. We will go over some of them points for points that will give you something to mull over, to think about, to conceptually recognize that you have not been exposed to this, although they've been telling you that they are your government. Pardon me. You'll be dealing with laws in general. Pardon me. Laws in general, justice, laws, law of nature, law of nations, municipal law, sovereignty, what is sovereignty, by whom sovereignty is exercised, division of the powers of sovereignty, what is a constitution, and different forms of government as an example. And so what I'm going to read to you, just to get you primed in relationship to what the intent of the matter that we're presenting to you for your liberation purposes, and for you to start taking more responsibility in your lives, presenting to you, and this is in the enumerated form, say points from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I think that should be sufficient for the night, since we can't go any further.